there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Where you gonna be tonight? Oh, there's magic coming. There's magic coming. There's magic coming. Get ready for the rest of your life. Hello and welcome to SassafrasCast. This is a podcast full of witchy insights to help you lead your sassiest life. I am Rorie Kelly, a tarot reader, singer-songwriter, and all-around personal growth nerd from Long Island, New York. In just a moment, we will begin the Witchy Weather Report, but first, a shout out to my patrons. I actually just got a new patron the other day, so I want to pull up my Patreon and make sure that I give them the shout out they are due. I'm so grateful to everyone who is supporting the podcast in every way. We've had some folks come into the podcast and support it at like a high level and then have to drop down to a $1 level and then come back up. And I just want to say I'm so grateful whatever way you can and choose to support this podcast means the world to me. And it almost means more to me like when I know what it's like to struggle with money, which is our topic today, money, sacred money. So it almost means more to me when, you know, it's clear that there's like a tough time if you have to lower down your membership, but people choose to still find a way to support, like to drop down to the $1 level. I gotta tell you, when I see that instead of a cancel, it means the world to me, honestly. So let's give a shout out. Shout out to Amanda Little, Mindful Marks, Patty Bell, Rachel Miller, Anti-Fragile Tarot, Grayson, Savannah Tillett, who is hanging out in the chat. Hello, Savannah. B from Whimsical Solace, Millie Orozco, Ruby, Rebecca Jones, Brittany, Hannah Westlock, Brittany Campbell, and Layla Benton, my newest patron. Thank you so much for joining the community here. I'm so grateful. So if you wanted to know, patrons get access to a witchy Discord community, and they also get to sit in on the recording session every month when I record SassafrasCast. They get a private YouTube link before each episode so they can tune in for the live recording, hang out in the chat, ask questions, and get them answered in real time. I think this is a benefit for everyone because it's a cool experience for me and my patrons to get to hang out and have that live experience. And I think also they have some really valuable perspectives to add about this topic, so things end up in the episode and end up addressed in ways that they might not have been before. So I'm really grateful. Some other of the patron bonuses include getting access to monthly tarot card pulls, getting first crack at the Witchy Weather Report when I do that second little podcast that I do, the Witchy Weather Report, which is on the last Saturday of the month, as well as just like little extras throughout the month. I love to, you know, drop whatever witchy content I'm kind of working on into the Patreon and just share it. And the Discord server is really fun. We're super active in there. We have a lot of really good conversations. All right, that brings us to the Witchy Weather Report. This now has its own spin-off podcast because it's fun, where I go live on the last Saturday of every month and pull a card for whoever I can get to in an hour. But this segment of the podcast, I'm going to pull a tarot card for us, and I'm also going to just reflect on the synchronicity of the moment, kind of give everyone listening a piece of guidance for the month. And I will say, before I pull a card, which I'm going to be reading today from the Herb Crafters Tarot, a beautiful deck by Joanna Powell Colbert and Letitia Guthrie. But before I pull a card, I want to share that we are having big sword energy and big page energy right now. And when I say things like that, it's because I read for many people. I'm a professional tarot reader and tarot teacher. I've been teaching someone the last few weeks. It's been incredibly fulfilling and fun. And I see patterns in what comes up. I see the same cards coming up again and again for different people kind of everywhere, and I take it to be the kind of weather of the moment. And I'll share that I'm also like a super deck collector nerd. So this is coming up across multiple decks that I own. It is not like just me shuffling badly or something like that. I keep seeing pages come up and I keep seeing swords come up. And what this tells me, you may have tuned in for past podcasts where I've talked about having big knight energy, Knight. Right now we have big page energy. Pages are a hair younger than knights. There's more of a sense of learning. Knights are more impulsive. They're like, yes, let's go. I'm ready to leave my mark on the world. Even if I'm not going to do it perfectly, I'm ready to get out there. Pages also want to get out there, but there's a real sense of beginner's mind to pages. A lot of us right now, I think, have new projects, new areas of life that we wish to seek out and honor and learn about. And we're out doing it. That is the energy of a lot of people right now, is that big fresh start energy. And in particular, we're getting a lot of swords, which tells me that a lot of people are turning to learning. A lot of people feel that in order to make their dreams happen, in order to move forward with what they want in life, they need to learn something, whether in a formal way through a school setting or, the school of life, or by seeking out some type of either formal or informal mentorship, or by doing online research. There's a sense of needing to gather information so that we can understand how to go after our dreams. There's also an emphasis on communication right now. What we say matters, and even more than that, that we speak matters. There's a lot of stuff that has either gone unsaid, or that frankly over the last 2 years, which have been a difficult couple of years for the whole world, maybe we haven't had the energy to speak aloud. And now those things are starting to get said, and change happens when we speak earnestly. Change happens when we speak our minds, when we bring conversation to the table, when we show up and say, I don't know what the solution is, but here's what's going on for me, what's going on for you. And we begin to talk about things, and that is the first step towards taking action and creating change. So that is the energy of the world right now. I happen to think that's a very exciting energy. I have spoken freely about how 2022 has been a weird, rough year for me. And I'm grateful to see the turnaround, and I think this is the right way to do it. Like, eyes wide open, ready to learn, ready to talk in community. That is the energy of the moment. And let me pull a card for everyone. I intend this card whenever you are listening to this podcast, whether you're listening to it kind of in sync with me. I will probably release this podcast on April 11th of 2022, or whether you have discovered me later and are going back and listening to old episodes, in which case, thank you. Welcome. Whatever, I intend this card to be useful to you in the moment that you hear it, to be something that you can take away and work with in the coming weeks. Our card this month is the Seven of Fire, or Cinnamon. I'm going to show this to you. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can see I'm holding this up. Did you know that there's a video version of SassafrasCast? You can access it by searching Sassafras Tarot or SassafrasCast, I forget which, on YouTube. I'm so professional. And I hope you will search me out on YouTube, because I don't yet have enough subscribers for a fancy link like youtube.com/ whatever. And I would really love to do that. I think it would make it easier for everybody. So we have the Seven of Fire. This is a beautiful deck, rich with both herb crafting traditions and also Latinx magical tradition. And what we have here is we have a skull on a rosary. We have a freshly cut lime. We have a cutting board, and we have cinnamon in a mortar and pestle being ground up. In the background there is a fire, because this is the Seven of Fire. Cinnamon adds a kick. The Seven of Fire is analogous to the Seven of Wands. It's a time when things heat up, when we may feel added pressure. And the message I'm getting from this card for this month is that when the pressure comes on us, we're going to meet it. We're going to meet it by stepping up our own energy. When we feel pressured to step back or step off or not show up for our dreams in the way we want to, perhaps because other people feel threatened, when we get that pushback in life, it's time for us to assess and ask ourselves how we feel about this. Are we showing up in this way because it's in line with our values? Because this is how we show up for ourselves right now, or our beliefs right now? And if so, then I'm going to ask us to kick it up a notch. I'm going to ask us to meet the pressure, meet the pushback with, no, we don't go down that easily. The Seven of Fire even gives us like some tools for how to do this. It's about accessing our own inner fire. Cinnamon in particular is a great herbal ally for stepping things up a notch, making them a little bit spicy, bringing that heat and bringing that passion. Why are we doing this? Sometimes when we get pushback, it can feel very frustrating, but it also connects us back with our why. If we're frustrated enough by the pushback, we remember, but wait, this is so important to me. And we are called right now to live our values, even if we receive pushback. And I hope that you will. I hope you will meet that with your own, your own righteous energy in this coming month. That's the Witchy Weather Report. Now we're going to talk about our topic of the day. I want to make a disclaimer. I have so many thoughts and feelings about money and magic and sacredness. This is something that has really been a big touchstone of my life for the last bunch of years. And I, in part out of necessity, if we're not born super privileged, we have to find a way how to earn our living. And for me, as a creative person trying to earn my living with my calling, it's been necessary for me to engage deeply with money, and in so doing, deeply with my values and beliefs around money. And so I've developed a lot of feelings, I've developed a lot of opinions, and I've developed a lot of practices. And I want to let you know that I don't come to this, as I often say, I don't come to the table as an expert. I don't come to the table as the person who's like, just do what I do. I come to the table as a fellow learner with big page energy and big swords energy, as someone who is on this journey and deeply invested in this journey and doesn't always do it right, but approaches this topic with a sense of earnestness and a sense of joy and adventure. And I encourage you to do the same thing, especially with things like money, things that are, essentially necessities for us at this moment in the, 21st century. If you are able to live a life completely apart from money, you are either deeply privileged or deeply marginalized. We really need money in order to get our needs met in this current paradigm in our society. And because it's something we have to interact with every day, I'm really going to encourage you to approach it as both a spiritual path and an adventurous one, and with a sense of humor, if at all possible, which I know can be really hard. So let me dive in. I made some notes about this last night, and I will admit, my thoughts are a little everywhere because I have so much to say on this topic. The structure of this episode is going to be that the first part of this is going to be kind of a philosophical discussion of why I believe money is sacred and how we can approach money and resource in general as sacred in our day-to-day lives. And then we're going to jump into the practical, and I have, for which you got this, the section where I give you 1 or 2 practical tips. I actually have a laundry list of practical ideas to share with you, and I encourage you to pick just 1 or 2 that feels like it jumps out with as meaningful to you. I encourage you not to try to do all of them unless you're, I have done all of them over the years because that's who I am as a person. But I encourage you to choose one thing that feels intriguing to you and start there, because that's how we grow. We grow step by step. So let's talk about, what does it mean to view interacting with money as sacred? I'm going to share my beliefs around this, and as always, you can share my beliefs, or you can disagree with me, or you can take some and leave the rest. I don't need you to feel exactly the way I feel about this, but I want to put it out there because I think it's an important conversation. I believe that our practical day-to-day actions can become sacred when we approach them with earnest intention. Any of our practical day-to-day actions can become sacred when we approach them from a earnest and sacred part of ourselves. I believe that we have divinity within us. I believe that providing for ourselves and our loved ones is a sacred act. And I want to add a corollary to that there are many different ways to provide for yourself. And I don't want this to be an ableist podcast where I equate our value with our, capitalist productivity, because that's ableist and a problem. And some of the ways we might provide ourselves may be accessing resources, right, that are there or should be there, or advocating for ourselves when the resources are not there. So I take a broad view of what it means to provide for ourselves and provide for others. And I also believe that there are ways to provide outside of just earning money, which is a very capitalist construct. I believe that when we approach our day-to-day experiences with money as sacred, then we get the opportunity to make our choices about money as our best selves rather than our stressed selves. We get to make those decisions in our wisdom when we acknowledge that even a small financial transaction is potentially a sacred act. How does this play out in real life? For me, I feel that how you make money matters more and more to me. It has already, as someone with a calling, with a creative calling, how I make money has always been kind of a topic of conversation for me, has always been important to me. But let's go deeper. I believe that if our money and our labor are both sacred, and I believe they are, it then becomes harder and harder to accept exploitation and toxic work environments. There's nothing sacred about being exploited. I would call that more on the profane side of the scale, being exploited and accepting a harmful work environment. We also grow more compassionate when we view other people's labor as sacred. We realize that we have an opportunity to live out our highest values when it comes to something as simple as tipping someone who serves us at a restaurant, hiring a freelancer to perform a service for us, or purchasing a gift for a loved one or for ourselves. It's okay to buy gifts for yourselves. This shouldn't become like a high pressure thing where suddenly every single transaction in our lives has to be perfect and sacred and magical. I feel that forcing anxiety and perfectionism on ourselves devalues our own time and energy. We can embrace doing our best with the resources we have at the moment and allowing that to be the sacred practice, asking ourselves, how can we show up in this moment with the resources we have, whether we're feeling well rested and spacious and able to devote lots of time and energy to kind of optimizing how we interact with the world, or whether we're feeling depleted and pressed for time and we're just doing our best, and sometimes done is better than good. We owe it to ourselves and those around us to honor and steward our own resources first. This is another sacred responsibility, and it is necessary to take good care of ourselves in order to live any kind of a meaningful life. So I want to talk for a minute about the concept of resource. If you have taken a tarot lesson or gotten a reading from me, you may have heard me say this. I've been teaching a new tarot student over the last couple of weeks. She's awesome. She's really cool, really insightful, really smart. And whenever pentacles come up, she has heard me say the word resource again and again and again, because we tend to talk about the suit of pentacles and we think money, and the visualization on the cards makes us think money a little bit. We got these honking gold coins with stars on them, right? But pentacles are not just about our money. It's a piece of it. But the true meaning of pentacles and the element of earth is about resource. Resource means to me all of the baseline things that we need in order to have any chance of being happy and healthy. Money is definitely one of those resources in our current paradigm, but also included under that heading are our time, how we use our time, and whether we feel that we have spacious time, our mental and our physical health, our core relationships, the people we interact with regularly and deeply, and the repeating habits and experiences that make up our day-to-day life. All of these different types of resources kind of intersect and affect each other. And the truth is that if any one of them is out of whack, life kind of sucks. If you don't have the money to cover your expenses, you're in a stressful state of anxiety all the time, and you're worried about being able to meet your basic needs. When your health suffers, your range of possible activities becomes more and more limited, and getting better, improving your health, or managing your health if you have a chronic condition becomes a necessary focus of your life. When one or more of your core relationships is toxic or painful, it's very difficult to experience a general sense of well-being in other areas of life because you're in pain. You're constantly being harmed. If you're not happy with how you're spending your days, well, you're just not happy. So all of these resources are important. They affect each other. One being out of whack can affect the others. All of this goes into my philosophy around sacred money, and it might be better to term it sacred resource. Meeting our needs And stewarding our resources is a holy task. And I'll bring this back to tarot. If you've ever heard me talk about the King or Queen of Pentacles, the way I describe them is as expert stewards of personal resources. How this plays out involves a variety of big and small practical decisions, and it can change the trajectory of our lives. For me, how I earn my money has become increasingly important. I mentioned that I'm someone who feels I have a calling in life, and honoring that calling requires a real big time and energy commitment if I'm going to honor it to the way that I feel I am supposed to. For my own mental and physical health, therefore, it's been really important to me to try to bring my career in line with my calling as much as as I humanly can. And that's like an evolving journey. That's a moving target as well. My understanding of what that looks like, as well as how to accomplish it, evolves year by year and even day by day. My view of money as sacred has also given me permission and motivation to build savings, to have a strong financial foundation for myself, something that, I'll be honest, part of the kind of shadow work I've done around money has uncovered this feeling of like, who am I to do well with money when other people are struggling? And my view of money as sacred has allowed me to see that I deserve to give myself a safety net if I possibly can, and that giving myself a strong foundation can allow me to help others. And I hope that you feel the same way. At the same time, it has also taught me that I have to take time off. I can't focus every moment of my waking life on working to earn more money. That's overwork, and I'm prone to it, and it's ultimately inefficient for starters. It leads to burnout and health problems, and I tend to make bad decisions when I'm overworking. But frankly, it wasn't until I valued myself enough to acknowledge that I simply deserve better than that I'm not a workhorse, I'm a human being, that I was able to actually make changes in my life about that. This evolving understanding of my own worth has been directly related to my evolving understanding of money and resource as sacred. I want to reiterate here that I do not connect my inherent value with my ability to provide money for myself. This is an ableist perspective. We all have inherent value. We all deserve to have our basic needs met. Period. The end. At some point for me, the concept of money being sacred means resources sacred, and what that boils down to is that getting our basic needs met and making sure others have their needs met too is sacred. And so I view providing for myself as a sacred act, as I view advocacy for basic income, as I view advocacy for easy access to social services. Those are also sacred acts. I view learning and deepening my understanding of intersecting privilege and oppression to be a sacred act. It allows me to do my best in this complex society that I live in, of serving the sacredness of resource, not only in my own life, but in the lives of the people around me. Because I see these things as not just important for survival, but sacred. Being in my integrity around money and resource has become necessary for my mental health. Also, spoiler alert, I am a Virgo with Aquarius rising, so I have a big social justice streak, and it tends to center itself around resource, which is what I associate with Earth, as you know. I've got a comment in the chat that I want to share. That says, I admire your ability to support yourself financially. It really inspires me. I want to say two things. I want to say thank you, and especially because it's been hard going for me. I've supported myself one way or another since I was 18 years old, but trying to do so in a way that is in my integrity, that feels like I'm living the life I'm meant to live, has been like an ongoing journey for my whole adult life. So, you know what they say, when you want to learn about something, don't go to someone to whom it comes easily, go to someone who's struggled. I'm the person who struggled. How you doing? But I also want to say, I know you, Savannah, the person making this comment, and I just feel like you make such a beautiful contribution to our existence and to the world around you. And I'm so grateful to see that light in my life. And that's something that many of the things that you do day to day, I admire because I can't imagine doing them myself. And I think this like taps into the idea of providing, having a wide definition. Providing is not just about earning money. That's like Wow, what a capitalist, what a capitalist point of view, right? Because providing also means like cooking the meals that keeps our family going. It means managing collectively for a family unit or for a community our time, our resources, our energy. And that's something I see you being very powerful at, Savannah. And that's been a struggle for me. And I just have like a husband and a cat and myself. And I will say, like, my husband is a grown up and capable of managing those things for himself. But I think we both contribute. Anytime you're in a household, everyone contributes, right, to managing that kind of energy of the household. Anyway, that was my philosophy drop. And here I'm going to start to move into the idea of how and why you may wish to put this idea of sacred money into practice in your life. I'm going to start with the why. Honestly, I just believe it can make life a lot more meaningful. I'm using sacred as a term that you can kind of choose your own adventure with, by the way. I know for some, sacred means very much like in connection with a deity, in connection with religious or spiritual beliefs. And for some, and for me, to me, it just means it's rooted in deeply held values that may be spiritual values. It may not be. I have sacred beliefs that probably if I dig deep enough, I can find a connection within my spirituality, but those core values and beliefs came first for me. And when I say sacred, I mean that it is so deeply important to me that I hold it in a very high regard. So I don't want us to necessarily feel like this has to be a like deeply, weirdly religious experience if we're not feeling it. I mean, sacred, in line with our deepest and highest values and ideals. So let's talk about why it's valuable to make money sacred, because there are people who feel quite the opposite of this. I remember being in a group on Facebook where a friend of mine who I think is a coach, like a coach around both prosperity and like general wellness, asked a question about, it was about sacred earning, something like that, about how like, do you view yourself as a soul-centered earner, a soul-centered provider, a soul-centered business person if you have a small business? And the comments were wild. Like, I was like, yeah, yes, I do. Absolutely. And the comments were like, no, I don't associate earning money with anything soul-centered because money is of man and it's not holy, and money is the root of all evil. Like that phrase comes up a lot. And I want to talk about that because I personally believe, and people are allowed to have their different beliefs, but I personally believe that is a self-limiting belief and one that can be harmful to us. We don't get a choice right now, at this moment in time in this current paradigm, about whether or not to engage with money. Money is an integral part of getting our needs met. We have to engage with it, usually on a daily basis. We have to do what we can to ensure our needs are met and to steward our money alongside our other resources. So I believe that's inherently sacred for the reasons I've talked about, but even if you feel differently, and you're free to, I'm going to submit to you that choosing to identify it as sacred, choosing to just decide this is a sacred part of my life, it simply makes our life feel more meaningful. When we connect our choices around money with our values and our deeply held beliefs, we have an opportunity to live those beliefs out in real time. We have an opportunity to discover what it means to us to live our values instead of just paying lip service to them and keeping them outside of our real daily lives. We have an opportunity to engage with what we believe is sacred on a daily basis. By contrast, if you are someone who views money and everything that touches it as profane or even as the root of evil, since money is literally a thing that humans invented to help us navigate meeting our basic needs as part of a larger society, I take issue with connecting it to evil. I take issue with connecting anything to evil that is literally about us attempting to meet our needs in community. As with so many resources, though, I'm going to acknowledge it can be approached with a mindful sense of responsibility, or it can be approached carelessly or selfishly. And I submit to you that by separating our spirituality for our money, we actually make it harder for ourselves to live out our values. I think that people see those who approach money selfishly, those who hoard wealth while other people are hungry, for example, those who try to quash people standing up for their rights. I think people see that, falsely equate money as the problem rather than the person who's doing that or people who are doing that in power, and check out around money in their own lives and say, well, I'm not going to be this money-driven, greedy person. I take personal issue with that. But then we have to engage with money, right? So I see people doing one of two things. I see people subconsciously mismanaging their own money because they have this belief that money isn't important, and if they give it too much importance, then they become greedy. And so this causes problems, right? Because mismanaging your money causes you problems. Because constantly living paycheck to paycheck is a more stressful existence than always having enough, or setting yourself up to try to, build savings and have a foundation. I realize some of this is in our control, some of it isn't, right? Like this is one of those things where we have to do what we can, but we don't have control over the external circumstances. And I also think that people who view money that way, who look at greedy people, who look at harmful people, and falsely equate money as the problem. Like, the problem's not just that this guy's a jerk. The problem is money, right? And I think that we've heard people say that, like, you get some money and you find out who you really are. And that has a real negative connotation. It's always like you find out what a selfish jerk the person is. And I think that what happens is it causes us to check out. We become so wary of giving money a position of importance in our lives because we perceive that as being greedy, that we check out around our money. And that puts us on the careless end of the spectrum, where we are not making careful choices about our money. We're not making mindful choices either about how we earn or how we spend our money. And I submitted to you that these people tend to be deeply spiritual, and deeply motivated by their own moral compass. And I submit to you that by allowing yourself to view money as sacred, you actually get the opportunity to live out your values on a daily basis in a bigger way. Because you acknowledge, okay, I can check into this. I can look at how I'm interacting with money, and I can choose, rather than acting like the 1%, rather than acting like someone who hoards wealth when other people are hungry, I can choose to act in my integrity. And that's an act of personal power, and it's an act of power that also affects the world around us. The other thing I want to share on a personal level is that if we view money as a necessary evil, that implies that we've accepted that a certain level of evil is just a part of our day-to-day lives. Because we all have to engage with money. If we believe engaging with money inherently is evil, then we have this daily challenge to our own self-worth and our own sense of right and wrong. As in, like, who are we to call ourselves worthy or practice discernment if we're literally engaging with evil every day? And I don't think it's as bad as all that. I don't think we are engaging with evil in any way, simply by doing our best to get our needs met in a society that money is such a big part of. I think that by believing money and resource is sacred, we give ourselves a functional belief that allows for greater happiness and self-worth, as well as a greater expression of our values in our lives. All right, that's my little soapbox. Now I want to talk about the how. How can we engage with money in a sacred way? I'm going to move into the section I call Witch, You Got This. And rather than share just one tip, I'm sharing a series of habits that you may choose to engage with in order to begin a sacred relationship with money. I'm going to share a bunch of things, and I'm going to encourage you to see what calls to you and try that one or two things, rather than let's not pressure ourselves to do all the things. Life is stressful enough. Okay, number one way to engage with money as sacred is to get radically honest with yourself about the reality of your finances. This involves regularly acknowledging the flow of money in and out of your life, how it comes to you, how it leaves you, and how that feels to you. On a practical level, this is simple. This can look like a practice of what people may call counting or doing the numbers, in which you literally just write down everything that comes in and everything that comes out. It's not about judging it. It's just about writing it down. So you have a written record, and you're forced to spend more than a second thinking about every time money comes into or exits your life, and then sitting with it. Then you have to sit with how it makes you feel to have to acknowledge every transaction in this way. This could be a temporary practice to help you understand yourself and your relationship with money better. It can be very transformative. For me, it started temporary and turned into a permanent practice. I have found that it is very helpful in spiritual ways. It's taught me a lot. It's taught me about myself. It's taught me about where I am willing to value myself and where I am not willing to value myself. And in practical ways, it has helped me as well. Like, I'm doing my taxes this year. It's April. And as a entrepreneur, I have to pull together like my income and my expenses for the business. And it's way easy because I have this record of literally every transaction neatly labeled that happened for the last year. So it's been helpful. It feels like a lot, I think. And for me, it's just a part of my experience. It's not a lot unless you let it be a lot. I put gas in the car, I open up my phone, I open up my Google spreadsheet, and I put gas in the car, $47 or whatever. Lately, it's been over 50. Idea number 2, start a relationship with money as a spirit. You can approach this the way you might approach a relationship with any spirit, and I know this looks different for different people. If meditations are your way of connecting, then meditate on meeting the money spirit and see what you learn from that. If it's like offerings and veneration that make you feel connected, then do that. If it's dream work, do that. If it's divination, do that. I'm going to encourage you to just decide, we're talking again about functional belief, to decide that money is a spirit that you can work with, and just do it and just see where it takes you, and to ask if there's anything you need to know or understand. And I'm going to recommend suspending your disbelief around whether this idea of money being a spirit is like a provable thing. I'm going to recommend you just try out the idea and see where it goes. My own perspective, and I will share, I have been working with money as a spirit, and it's been an incredibly transformative relationship for me. My own perspective is that whether this information that you're getting in this relationship or this interaction, whether it's coming from literally like a conscious spirit form of money, or whether it's coming from your higher self, or whether it's coming from some other guide or ancestor, or whether it's just coming from your subconscious, in any event, it's deeply valuable and worth doing. There's a lot to learn. For me, it's been deeply transformative. And I want to share too, one of the things I've been thinking about a lot as I get deeper into spirituality, as someone who used to be agnostic to the point of really not able to even think about interacting with things like spirits and deities. One of the things for me that I have found to be transformative is that we grow, we are harmed, and we heal in relationship. Our trauma happens to us in relationship, and we recover from trauma in relationship. We can't do it in a vacuum. And so for me to be in relationship with money as a spirit has been very healing and has helped me move through my trauma. And whether it's, whether you're gonna label it as a real experience or just an experience that is really meaningful to me, doesn't matter a whole lot. What matters is that it's been a deep transformation for me, and it continues to be a source of evolution and growth. Not just in my financial life, by the way. It has really helped me grow in building my own understanding of myself and of my happiness. One of the things, I'm going to share something a little personal right now. One of the things that I've spent a lot of time thinking about around the working with the money spirit is how we created money. And you could argue that this is the case of any spirit or deity you work with, that it's, a man-made, is it man-made or did it create us? Like there's that like kind of philosophical question, right? Humans created money and then gave it a lot of power over our lives and projected a whole lot of stuff onto it, right? Like money is the root of all evil. Money is the key to happiness. You can't buy happiness. Money and happiness are antithetical to each other. Money is dirty. Money is sacred. Like there's all of these conflicting beliefs. And I've spent some real time thinking about money being a product of humanity. Money being literally something we created. You could view it as a child that we as a society created. And I'm just like, imagine having a child and giving it then ultimate power over your life and projecting all of your internalized crap onto that child. Imagine what it would be like to grow up as that kid, y'all. So I approach my relationship with the money spirit with this kind of like, I guess, trauma informed idea of what it must be like to be that entity, to be a created by and then rejected by and then have all that stuff projected onto you. And so my approach with working with the money spirit has really been one of listening and really one of compassion. And I have really made a point of making it not all be about me and like, well, what can I do to make my money better? And I have to say that approaching it in that way has been incredibly transformative, incredibly healing for me. It has shown me a lot about myself. And that's me personally. And I have to imagine that your relationship with money as a spirit will inherently reflect your own, what's under the hood, your own subconscious and your own values and your own beliefs and your own fears. And I think it can be very healing. Idea number 3. Alternatively, if you have a deity or guide that you work with, and or if you prefer to tap into your own highest wisdom rather than seeking out, external wisdom, then I'm going to suggest you do some work with that source, whether it's internal or external, specifically around the topic of money. Very open-ended. What is it I need to understand about money today? Are there any practices that may aid me in leveling up how I experience money? And I want to encourage you to give those practices a go, even if they seem totally weird or off topic. We put so much into our beliefs around money that it's really interesting how doing a practice that on the surface seems to have nothing to do with it can affect our relationship with money. For me, I have found that honoring my own happiness is a big part of me healing my relationship with money. Having a practice of making an offering of happiness, by which I mean that's a practice that came for me out of my spiritual practice, was suggested to me. And having this practice of making a daily moment to acknowledge my happiness. When I say making an offering of happiness, it's not like, I don't deserve this happiness, I offer it to you. It's more like happiness is a candle that can light another candle, right? Like I share this moment of happiness. It's given me permission to identify and sink into my moments of joy. And not just that, but to identify what gives me moments of joy. And that's been deeply meaningful for me, both in my financial life and in my personal life. And simply realizing that I deserve joy, and that a lot of my joy has to do with simple pleasures, has to do with like, connecting with my cat, connecting with my loved ones, spending a moment doing something creative, regardless of whether there is a payoff. It has really healed my relationship with money, my relationship with needing to be productive at all times. So that's kind of my personal experience with that. Idea number 4. Do money magic. Do a bunch of money magic. Like look it up on the internet, go to wikipedia.com, buy a book on money magic. Just give a bunch of money magic a try. Identify what you want to do. Do you want to draw in money? Do you want to reduce money going out? Do you want to get someone to pay you who owes you money? Do money magic early and do it often. Do regular small workings instead of like the big emergency, like, oh my gosh, I need to pay my rent / mortgage and I'm panicking. Rather than the big emergency workings, what would it look like to approach both your financial life and your spiritual life as one of like prevention and foundation, setting a solid foundation for yourself? Of like not needing to do the big emergency working because along the way you were on a practical level, like, saving where you could, planning ahead and doing what you needed to do to work out any like financial issues you might have. And on a magical level, like, doing things to balance the energy of your finances, doing things to open opportunities for you if that's what you need, or doing things to help you heal your own relationship with money if that's what you need, bit by bit by bit. Because things get done. Big things get done with small baby steps. And of course, do your money magic and pair it with practical action. I'm going to further suggest that you journal about it. This has been really, really transformative for me. Oh, thank you. Savannah's in the comments and says, I love the Witch you got this part of the podcast. This is so helpful. Thank you for this real-time feedback. Because I do sometimes feel like I'm so excited about these topics. And I'm like, am I rambling about something no one else cares about? Anyway. So do money magic. Journal about money magic. Journal about A, how it's going, and B, how it makes you feel. Whether it's going poorly and how that makes you feel, or it's going well and how that makes you feel, you're gonna learn something. Idea number 5. I think we're at 5. I lost count. Sit with your money, but literally. If you are someone who, like I'm a performer, so I get paid in cash often. Or if you're someone who regularly uses cash, or perhaps that's a way of managing your money, like you give yourself a certain amount of cash for the week or whatever. If cash is something you come into contact with regularly, I'm going to tell you to sit with your cash. Just sit with it, like in your hand, and meditate with it the way you might meditate with like a crystal in the palm of your hand. Like just sit with its energy and just see what comes up. If your financial world is mostly digital, then I'm going to suggest the same practice, but instead do that in a digital way. Like maybe open up your online bank statement and sit with that. Like, let's just see what happens when we literally just sit and meditate on our money. No expectations. Again, so much to learn. And again, I will share that you can't do it wrong. If you're learning something, you're doing it right. Idea number 6. Answer 2 daily questions in a journal. 1. How are my resources going today? Notice I said resource here, not money. All of your resources. This is a good place to acknowledge both what's going well and what's out of whack. 2, how do I feel about it? Idea number 7. Read a book or engage in some other form of education, like a podcast, a blog, whatever it is, either spiritual or practical around the topic of money or resource. One that I recommend on the more practical side is Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robbins, and I will share a link to that in the show note. And one that I recommend on the more spiritual side is Financial Sorcery by Jason Miller. And I was reflecting as I was planning the show that both of these books, I think, really traverse both topics. Your Money or Your Life is really meant to be a practical teaching about creating for yourself a safety net and creating for yourself the ability to live the life you want by giving your money enough of a focus to make it a valuable resource for you to help you live your best life. And inherently it's deeply spiritual. Inherently it's about living your value. And the author is this like wonderful hippie lady who genuinely goes out kind of preaching the gospel of how to manage your money because she believes that we can all live out our callings and create value for society more when we're not stressed constantly about money. And Financial Sorcery, like inherently, that's a witchy book, right? But you'll find Jason Miller, one of the things I love about him as an author is that he's also a deeply practical. He's not the guy who's like, do the spell and you'll win the lottery. He's like, do the spell and then do the stuff you gotta do. He's the person who really talks a lot about small money magic instead of waiting until you need the emergency magic. Do the spell to bring in more money. And then go send your resume around or then go promote your business a little bit, do the spell to get someone to pay you and then call them up and remind them that they owe you money. Both books are both, in my view, practical and spiritual. Or read something else that calls to you. Read a book that you disagree with on the topic or that you think you might disagree with. I've found that to be really interesting. I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is one of these recommended, financial texts to learn about money. And I'm someone who's been on a journey of I want to understand money for that reason I mentioned, to be able to live my best life, for my money to support that and to support my calling and support me doing good in the world. And I read this book, and I have to say, like, there's a percentage of the author's entire attitude that just pisses me off. It's like, it really is that sense of like equating value with your ability to earn money. And, just the title, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like, wow, like holy toxic masculinity, Batman. Like, it's really about like, here's the things your rich dad would teach you versus what your crappy poor dad would teach you. Like, wow. However, I will say that I got some useful information out of that book. And I didn't leave the book converted to something that I found distasteful, which I think people might fear when they read a book that's outside of their usual spiritual lexicon or whatever. On the contrary, I left the book feeling more secure than ever in my personal values around this, feeling like, yeah, no, I'm not going to buy that. I listened to it as an audiobook, and I was like, the author would say something and I'd be like, nope. At the same time, though, there were some valuable things that I took away from that book. And the number one, which I will share with you, that still affects me today, and which I have expanded to deal with resource, is pay yourself first. In other words, when you get paid in any way, when money comes into your life, pay yourself first before going and paying your bills or going and paying your mortgage. Now, if you're struggling and like living paycheck to paycheck, or feeling like you're just getting by, which I'm here to tell you, I have spent a lot of my adult life that way. This feels like, yeah, bro, I can't pay myself first. I have to pay all these people. And the book actually really encourages you with this idea of like, this was my takeaway having read it a few years ago, so I may be paraphrasing badly. But essentially, okay, if I put away 10% of everything I make, instead of putting that 10% towards a bill or whatever, in a few years, I will have a nest egg that can support me in an emergency. Whereas if I put that 10% consistently towards a bill, if I'm like, well, I don't want to get a late fee, or, I don't want to be a little bit past the grace period or whatever, and like, get hit with something on my credit or whatever. And if you consistently are in that like, ooh, I have to avoid this negative consequence. Ooh, I have to avoid this negative consequence. You never get the positive consequence of building up the savings. Because if you wait until you've paid everybody and just, save what's left over, I'm telling you, you're going to find that nothing's left over. I tell you from experience, if you pay yourself first, then I'm putting away 10%. And yeah, you know what? Sometimes I've put away that 10% and had to take it right back out again. But I will tell you that building the habit of saving a percentage of my money, first thing I do, the instant new money comes into my life, has been really, really a boon in my financial life, has helped me through lean times, and has helped me with my self-worth at times when things were going well. And, helped me build a future for myself for my lean times. So pay yourself first. And lately, I have been looking at this. I'm sorry that this is a tangent, but I think it's worthwhile and related to this topic. Lately, I've been looking at pay yourself first, not just as being about money. I've been expanding my idea of this to encompass all of resource, what I talk about as resource. And pay yourself first, I've been expanding it to be like, pay my health first. Right? I am someone who, I've talked freely about how I have like some workaholic tendencies, and this has affected my physical health. Like I have like back pain and neck pain that happens every time I kind of fall into overwork. And I'm beginning to look at this idea of like, pay my health first. Rather than thinking about who I need to pay money to, the first thing I need to pay is my health bill. The first thing I need to do is make sure I am getting the rest I need, and make sure my body is getting the movement it needs to stay healthy, and make sure that my body is getting nourishing food and water that it needs. Because especially as someone providing for myself, I am the provider. I need to be in good health because I'm the one creating, these options of getting my basic needs met. And if I'm not taking good care of myself, then my ability to do that goes out the window real fast. So I've been really exploring this idea of pay your physical and mental health first, not just pay yourself first in terms of money. So I would love to hear how people play that out, like pay yourself first, but thinking it in terms of other resources than just money. I think it's a really powerful idea. Okay, idea number, I think we're at 8. I might be wrong. I should have numbered these. I always do this. I always like make a laundry list and don't number it. And then I'm like, oh, where are we? Idea number 8, do shadow work around money. Identify what underlying beliefs you might have about it. Do a meditation, do some dream work, do some automatic writing, or do some kind of creative modality to access your subconscious, because we're looking for your subconscious thoughts and beliefs. Or alternately, take a stroll down memory lane and try to think about your first 3 earliest money memories. Your first 3 earliest memories involving money. And I think that this is very effective because our brain, especially early memories, there are whole swaths of our early childhood we don't remember, right? So at that early stage where we are forming memories, if you have a memory involving money, it's probably formative. It probably did affect you. So take a stroll down memory lane, take a look at your 3 earliest memories and ask yourself if there's anything you learned from it, if there are big feelings that come up around it especially. And I want to share with you, talking about feelings, our feelings and beliefs about money are usually very deeply tied in with our own sense of self-worth or lack thereof. So doing any of these exercises, doing any kind of shadow work around money is almost certainly going to give you big feels. And it is wise to pre-plan some loving support for yourself before you engage in this or any other type of shadow work, to plan it so that, first of all, like, it's okay. Like, if you're planning, like, okay, I'm going to spend an hour of my shadow work, don't give yourself a public appearance right after that. Like, allow room for the fact that you might cry and you might not want to go out and see people after that. And, give yourself some kind of support lifeline where you're like, okay, here's the friend I can call if I need to talk something out, or I can, journal about this and then bring it up to my therapist. Like, plan for yourself the resources for when you are in your big feels. Give yourself that benefit. Pay yourself first. Pay your feelings first. I have tried every single one of these things that I've shared with you and continue to. My relationship with money continues to evolve. Right this minute, honoring money and how I engage with it as a sacred pursuit feels incredibly healthy for me. It has brought me more into balance with my values. It has helped me and sometimes forced me to value myself more and to prioritize my own well-being in a way that I kind of wasn't doing out of the gate. It made me realize how much I was devaluing myself. As always, I want to encourage you to disagree with the ideas I present here, or feel free to take some of it and leave the rest, as I did with that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I absolutely took some that was valuable and left the stuff that I felt was toxic. But I'm grateful that I read it because I got some really valuable insights out of it, including the internal insights, right? Including like, wow, I really feel strongly about these values and here's why, including the disagreement. My highest desire for this podcast is for it to be a source of learning and growth for both of us, and your growth and learning do not have to look the same as mine. Oh, wow, this is really interesting. Savannah says, when I was growing up, my parents always paid the church the first 10% of whatever they earned, and that always made me resentful as a child. Woo, shadows. I want to share with you, and I won't share like names or identifying information because this is someone else's history, but I have a friend who also grew up in a religious environment where their parents tithed 10% of their income to the church. And what's really interesting is that friend ultimately ended up moving away from the church and moving into like exploring different values of ideas and really growing into the kind of person that Jesus Christ would probably want to hang out with, but a lot of churchgoers probably wouldn't, if you know what I mean. And one of the things that they continued to do was tithe 10% of their income. And as they went on their own kind of journey of exploration about their own beliefs, this tithing stopped looking like tithing to a church and started looking like tithing to social justice causes, like donating to Black Lives Matter, donating to causes and organizations that were actually making a positive difference in the world. And I think it's really interesting that that's like a positive aspect for them, who had like a toxic relationship ultimately with the church, but something positive that came out of it. And it's really interesting that your experience, Savannah, is that it leads you to this resentment of like, wow, I'm resentful that a percentage of resources for my family is going to the church. And that's fascinating to me. And I feel like that's worth like delving into how that plays out now, how that feeling of resentment has affected your behavior now. Not to psychoanalyze you. I just think that's fascinating. And I really, I thank you for sharing it. I've had, for me, going down that memory lane of early memories about money has been really interesting. Has really like, some of my earliest memories about money were about times when my family was, you know, struggling to pay a bill and surprised by it. And this is, I think everyone has had like tumultuous times in their family, you know, history. Like I'm someone who grew up pretty middle class and didn't want for a lot. So I don't want to like make it seem as though I had this like poverty stricken childhood. I didn't. But one of my earliest memories was of like something needing to be paid and my parents basically going like, oh crap, you know, like we're not going to be able to pay this. What do we do? And I have to say like, that's been, I think my own overexertion of control around like, I got to make sure I'm always earning money. I got to make sure that the bills are paid no matter what. That comes first has led to some of me like devaluing myself because I'm like, well, I don't want to be caught off guard. So I become hypervigilant or whatever from this one, you know, this one formative memory that may or may not have been representative of our entire childhood. Like I said, I had a pretty middle class upbringing. You know, my sister had a my-size Barbie. I had Nintendo. Like we were okay. But that memory definitely did put some stuff in my head. Anyway, let's see. I want to kind of bring us to a close. I'm going to share both a poem and a song with you about this topic. But first, I want to just share kind of my closing thoughts about this. And I want to reiterate to you that my practice of relating to money and resource as sacred continues to be deeply flawed. And specifically, I am on day 10 of no days off right now. And I wrote this podcast, like wrote out the notes for this podcast, downloaded all my thoughts at like 1 a.m. last night and didn't get enough sleep as a result because that was the time I had in my day to do it. So I'm on that upswing of like, I am relearning day by day that lesson of how to value myself, how to pay my health and my mental health first. And I don't always do it right. But I want to say that almost feels just right to me. It proves to me that this is an area that's important for me to focus on. Making an area of our lives sacred should not turn it into an area of anxiety and perfectionism. Most of us engage with this spiritual path. We're doing so to grow. And if we're doing something perfectly, there is no room for growth, and therefore it actually ceases to become spiritual. After years and years of engaging with spiritual growth specifically around money and resource, I can say that for me, there is no imminent danger of perfection. Let's embrace our screw-ups along the path, of which mine are plentiful. Let's embrace them as opportunities for growth. Let's embrace them as a chance to learn important lessons, and let's be nice to ourselves about it. Let's be excited about the lessons instead of beating ourselves up, because being able to level up and make a better choice next time really is exciting. It's transformative. I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me today. Time is our most valuable resource. Unlike money, it is a non-renewable resource unless you know about time traveling, in which case I want to be your friend and learn all about that. It's a finite resource, and you choosing to spend your time with me really means a whole lot to me. If you like this podcast, please rate it and review it wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you could take a moment to share it with someone who might be interested, I would be very, very grateful for that. If you would like to support this podcast financially and unlock exclusive benefits, you can do so at patreon.com/Sassafras Tarot, SassafrasTarot, for $1 a month or more. Patrons get access to things like extra content, personalized card pulls, a Witchy Discord community, and more. If you have a question, idea, or suggestion, if you would like to share how any of these ideas have played out in your life, I really want to hear about it. This is a topic I'm super nerdy about. I really want to hear your experiences and thoughts and ideas. You can email me at sassafrastarot@gmail.com, or you can follow me on social media and contact me there. I'm at Sassafras Tarot pretty much everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. Here is where I usually share. If you'd like to order a reading, you can do so at my Etsy shop. And I want to let you know that part of my engagement this month with money and resource as sacred is that I am participating in an Etsy strike. Etsy announced an incredible earnings year, and the very next day turned around and announced that they were going to be hiking seller fees by, I believe it was 30%. And I'm going to let you know, as someone who used to be a web developer and is pretty engaged in like online commerce, Etsy's seller fees are already quite high. Like, they are above the standard, and very much I and other Etsy sellers accept that because it's Etsy. Like, it has, some name cachet, And Etsy has decided, after, having an incredible earnings month, which came from us, right? The creators, who are the, baseline community of Etsy, after having an incredible earnings year, to hike our fees significantly. A lot of us feel that is pretty exploitive. And so I will be participating in the Etsy strike right now. We are putting our shops, starting on April 11th, in vacation mode to, really share how we feel about Etsy devaluing our labor in that way. So so if you'd like to order a reading, message me, because I'm not going to be selling through Etsy for the next little bit. As always, I want to take you out with a song. If you enjoy my music, please search for me wherever you listen to music. That's my main calling. It is my heart's work. Search for Rorie Kelly, spelled RorieKelly, wherever you listen to music or on your favorite social media site, and I will be there. I really appreciate you spending time with me and being open to hearing my ideas as well as my art. Like I said, I'm going to share you a poem as well as a song today, because I have two, pieces of art around this topic that I just want to share with you. I just think are worth sharing. So let me do the poem first, and then I will play a song for you, which is called When the Summer Comes. These are both things that I haven't shared publicly before. I've read, I think, this poem a couple times on my live stream, Monday Night Muses. I have not shared the song really anywhere except for to my patrons before. This poem is called Glasses. And it deals with both my own relationship with money and self-value, as well as what I was talking about earlier about the money spirit and what it is to kind of create something and then project all our crap onto it. Glasses. I see the world through windows on my face, and they are scratched and scuffed and badly need to be replaced. And never can I make myself pull the trigger, because what's a little thing like seeing clearly compared to the bills I have to pay to companies? A drop in the bucket for them, days and nights of anxiety for me. Slowly, we give up on our human needs to play a complex jigsaw puzzle game with schedules and money, because our time doesn't seem to belong to us, and we pile our pain and resentment onto the consensual reality of money. A flawed and hurting construct we shove all of our guilt and ideals into. All that shadow work left undone, a psycho-spiritual dumping ground, and we wonder why money doesn't like us when we treat her like a virgin and a whore. Dirty and pure, our unexamined expectations ramming daily down her throat. Money is in an abusive relationship with the world that made her, and nobody could blame her if she left. But she's an empath, and she soaks it all up, and each late fee accrued multiplies our self-disgust. Until we can't even talk about it in an honest and specific way, just bitter blanket statements and sly jokes. We can sweep our shame under the covers, but then we have to get in bed with it each night. Do you know what that does to a person? Money does. Sex does. Brutalized inner children told to stop crying and man up. They know it, and I know it, and you know it too. And it's not like there is nothing we can do. But it's hard to break away from this rolling ball of culture at this point in its trajectory. rolling boldly on, accumulating debris, absorbing you, absorbing me. We can't compete with the inertia. So we have to invent weird workarounds, trying to make our corner of this weird culture meatball feel like home when we find we can't get off. Our lives built on layers of lives that came before us. It's no wonder we're confused and can't keep up. And I can see this all clearly around noon on a Wednesday, but I can't make myself pony up for new classes. All right, as always, I will take you out with a song. This is an unreleased song. This is a SassafrasCast exclusive. Not on purpose, but I was reflecting on what I wanted to share today musically. And I realized that this was the song. This was the right song to share with you around this topic. It's called When the Summer Comes. And I wrote this during a part of quarantine where I was financially okay for the moment. You know, many of us lost our income during quarantine. And I was experiencing real financial insecurity, and yet at the same time, the first real spaciousness in my schedule and ability to take care of my physical and mental health without restraint that I have experienced in my adult life, to be honest with you. I've been working really hard for most of my adulthood. And it really opened my eyes to wow, I have to give more time and energy to me, to my health. I have to pay myself first in this way. And I was reflecting on how I would find ways to do that, or if I'd be able to find ways to do that kind of when the world opened back up. This is called When the Summer Comes. I'm going to take a quick moment and make sure my guitar is in decent tune for you. Actually feels pretty okay. And another quick moment of a sip of coffee, because I'm paying my throat first. When the summer comes, will I still be able to hold on to my boundaries and spend my time the way I want to when the summer comes? Will the money in my mortgage account be high enough for my anxiety? When the summer comes, the days are long, I'm always putting sunscreen on. My skin still finds a way to get burned. The calls come in, the gigs are many, everybody's partying, and I've got no time to myself. Don't wanna be a money farmer all my life, though I think providing sacred, my time is still short, and I aim to spend it with my heart, and I aim to spend it with my heart. I dream that I'm a smoker, feeling dull and angry, stubbing out a cigarette and doing numbers once again. Oh, when the summer comes and the money's never quite where it needs to be to get me out of this city. My mother named me strong and able. Every day I prove her right, and when I take a day off I get sad. I wanna live, I wanna travel. I can't make the numbers work, but somehow less committed people get it done every day. Don't wanna be just treading water all my life. Maybe I should buy a boat because my time is so short, and I aim to spend it with my heart. Ooh, I aim to spend it with my heart. When the summer comes, it knocks me flat on my back. When the summer comes, like one long panic attack. I can't believe people think that this is fun, and it gets harder and harder every time to get up. Don't wanna be a money farmer all my life, though I know providing sacred, my time is so short, and I aim to spend it with my heart. Oh, I aim to spend it with my heart. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for spending time with me, your most valuable resource. May you spend your time and all your resources with your heart, and may you be well.